but I guess Francine is here to help us out with that. What we're going to talk about today is we have a panel here, which I'm going to introduce, which are going to introduce themselves pretty soon. Through getting to know them and their roles and their process and their everyday, we're going to try to draw a picture of the music supervision and sync in Germany. I'm going to start with introducing myself. I'm a music supervisor in Ohlogy. Ohlogy is an independent music agency that we founded some 10 years ago in Stockholm and Oslo. Before that, I worked music supervision in a company called Riviera, even 4 years before that. So I've been lucky to follow the great transition from sort of the old media world to the new media world. As a music supervisor, that's obviously been very exciting. And I've also been following the sort of establishment of music supervision in Scandinavia, although there was a little bit present in the 90s and the noughts. I'm guessing it's only in the last 5 years that it's really something that everybody has an idea of, something everybody has a strategy towards, something every film producer is considering. My impression is that the Norwegian and Swedish and Danish, particularly scene, which I know well, have matured a lot in the last 5 years in terms of being proactive, knowing what the interesting opportunities are, knowing how to be critical, when to be critical, being critical in the right way, etc., etc. Now, getting to know a different territory is always exciting because things change. It could be small changes with big effect or big changes with small effect, which is what we're going to try to get a better understanding of in this hour. Ending my monologue here and bringing the word, let's start with you, Silvia. Would you mind telling us a bit about yourself, about your scope of work, and a little bit about your experience with sync in music supervision?
Hi, I'm Silvia. I am working as a licensing manager for a record label called Slang. It's an international independent record label founded in the 90s and based in Berlin. But we also operate all over Europe and in the US. So we have also a member of our team based in the UK, in France, and US. And specifically, my job is dealing with all the incoming and coming out licensing from our artists. So it's interesting to see how it's not concerning only Germany, but we used to deal also with in a European level, let's say. And I'm working there since like 2019. Before that, I've got like legal studies, so I was dealing with legal issues concerning the music business and media law, which brought me to this field, essentially.
Are you in touch with music supervisor? What's your impression on working with sync licensing in Germany? Who are the people getting in touch with you for sync licenses? Are there music supervisors? Are there different post-production people, agencies? What can you tell us about that?
It's a variety, let's say. We used to get requests from music supervisor, from little small film producers who doesn't have the budget to get in contact directly with a music supervisor or agency itself. So we usually have two different type of approach, or sometimes we got a direct request. For example, I would like to license music X from artist Y, and then we from this point on start with the clearance of the right, in this case of course the master right. Or we got to suggest music on our own, and this I think is also really interesting for especially emerging artists who don't really get the chance to expose themselves.
Yep.
So basically, that's how, from our point of view, it works.
Yeah. We'll get back to the details of the interaction. So we're gonna have to ask you about, what does a good inquiry or clearance request look like in your eyes, and we're gonna have to also ask you to describe what a bad one looks like and why that is, because we want the Nordic young professionals to send only good requests, obviously. But on this opportunity, we'll go forward to Pia. Could you tell us a little bit about your work experience and your vision of music supervision in Germany and how it has developed over the last, say, 5-10 years? That's a big question, sorry.
Okay, I will try.
Yeah.
I will try. I do work as a music supervisor for the last 15 years. I studied film production, and then I started to work at a music publisher and a label. And after a while, I decided to work as a freelancer. I work pretty close with directors, with producers, with artists, and start with a script. The production company hires me when they start with a script, and we think about what kind of music do we need, what kind of score do we need? Do we need classical score, pop sound, whatever? And then I pitch songs, or the production company, the director already knows what he wants. It depends. I do a lot of co-productions in Europe, and do quite smaller movies than Uli. Uli does the big ones in Germany. I work a lot for Sky, Netflix, and Amazon for the last years. It started 2 years ago, which is a great field because they produce faster, and it's more safe. The schedule is more safe. You know exactly when it will be screened, not with a movie, like a movie went to theater. Maybe something changed, James Bond comes out, so it will be delayed. And this is
a pandemic suddenly happens, and then you have it going. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
Thank you. What's your impression? Do you feel somehow that the field of music supervision has changed in your 15 years, and how? In Germany?
I would say that the directors start earlier to think about music. They calculate a budget quite earlier. And like I said, since Amazon, Netflix is really getting big in the market, or bigger, let's say bigger, for the last 2 years, they produce more, of course. And you have more opportunity to license songs or to pitch songs.
Yeah. Great, thanks. That's a great start. Thank you so much. Uli, let's hear from you. I guess you're known with the syntax by now. We want to know a little bit about your experience, scope of work, and your opinion on how it has developed in your time in Germany.
Well, I've been supervising for now, 12, 13 years. And I've been working mainly in cinema, movie, a little bit series, but it's like Pia said, my field is rather the cinema, movie than TV or platforms. How has it developed or changed? I can just confirm what Pia just said. Is the timetable has gotten a little tougher. It feels like things need to be done quicker. The budgets are calculated earlier. I haven't really seen any huge development in any budget, so it's not like that we have a higher budget now than I had 10 years ago, though the demand of rights has maybe changed in a certain way. It was easier 10 years ago to just clear certain territories rather than what white now, or something Pia has probably to deal with more than I do, that due to the American platforms, they require higher, bigger range of rights that we had to clear years ago. While budgets haven't changed that much. That's maybe one difference. But yeah.
Interesting. So from what I understand, we have a lot of experience with in working in music supervision in Germany in this room. We also have a lot of experience in receiving those requests. I wanted to ask you a question about sort of to draw up geographically this kind of map, because I know in Norway, with no offense made to anyone, I think it's safe to say that in terms of Norwegian media production, whether it be feature film, ads, or drama, the decision making is very centralized. So most of them are going to be in Oslo, in the capital, right? I think the same goes for Sweden, and we're small countries, so niche structures like rights management or drama production are going to have to stay close in the city. What does Germany look like? Is it very much Berlin, or is it spread out, or is it kind of feature film in Berlin and ads in Frankfurt, or does it make sense to draw a map like that at all? Anyone inclined to start?
I would say it's more spread out than it is in other countries. Like, I mean, but this doesn't only count for music supervision. I think you do have production companies in Berlin and Munich, also Cologne, but Hamburg is very big as well for films, but mainly probably for ads. I think it's more spread out than in other countries. I mean, even bigger countries. I don't know the French market that well, but I would assume that Paris is probably the central, or UK might be London, and in Germany, I still feel it's a little more spread out, though. It focus at the very end at the big cities rather than the countryside. Yeah. Or Pia, would you agree?
I totally agree. Yes, it doesn't matter where you are based, not at all, because you have the funding system in Germany. So the funding system supports movies. And there's so many, I mean, Netflix is now in Berlin and Munich, and Amazon is in Munich, but it doesn't matter where they are based, because the production company who produces for Amazon or Netflix, sometimes they're in Berlin or in Cologne or wherever. So it's really, and for us, I would say it doesn't matter at all where we are based. We are there where the production company produces or where the director is editing his movie. So it's really, it doesn't matter.
And especially now, right? Because we're all going to have our meetings on Zoom anyway. So it's a weird question in this time to ask. But I have noticed this, that Germany is unique in the sense that it's very spread out, which I think is very fascinating and interesting. I'm still curious, though, to your opinion, to do certain types of production or even types of tonalities or types of films, types of ads tend to move towards certain cities. So that if I work with punk bands and I know that punk is really hot in or the sort of garagey, like punk was a hard word, but the garagey catchy songs that car ad songs, and is there a city that elevates itself that as my main target should I want to pitch for the car ads, because obviously the car industry in Germany is something everybody wants to get at, right?
No, I would say that there are more specialized labels or catalogs or publishers who are really good in specific genre. But I wouldn't say I go to Berlin when I'm looking for electronic beats or stuff. I could go to Berlin, but also to Munich or wherever. So I would say there are more focused labels or publishers.
Interesting.
I agree totally.
Perfect. Silvia, would you say that your label, would you say that it has such a focus or tags attached to it that you tend to get reached out to on the?
Well, we have a specific genre, let's say, so it depends, of course, on the personal taste of film producer or the art director that are maybe they tend to search something a little bit more Hindi rock into an electronic focus to songwriting, and that might fit more, for example, let's say, film production, but like it depends on the music itself and on the artist too. So maybe on the commercial, we experience that you tend to choose more catchy song because of the brand and the sell, and it promotes and it stays in mind more than, for example, a movie that can get like a melody or an ambient pop, for example, who can combine the scene with the music and flows.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so far I'm struggling to find the great contrast and differences, because this all sounds very natural and familiar to my Nordic experience, from, you know, how it's basically about knowing what you have and what you sound, and for the ones buying music, knowing where to find it. And it doesn't matter anymore where it is or what it is. You just kind of you just listen to it. The same experience with the budgets, that they're kind of staying the same, but the ask is sort of increasing. So relatively, it feels like a more demanding experience. I think a lot of Nordic music supervisors are going to relate to that. I'm gonna go back to the label perspective a bit. So, are you experiencing a lot of? Do you see the same tendencies here, that we sort of have a lot more production? So there's more production relatively. There's content marketing and indie films, and now Amazon and Netflix are funding it, but they tend to be all over the place in terms of their scope and license and budget. So it's kind of getting harder and harder to assess what kind of opportunity is it, right?
It's kind of gambling when you have to pitch for a movie or a commercial. It's just like it's probably, yes, just a matter of taste of the people involved. So, or you like the song a lot, or you just ate it and you think it doesn't fit that well. So I think that's why I was saying before that it's important for us to send music to music supervisor. That what actually we are doing all the time. And if we have good connection with a specific music supervisor, we just send the newest release or what we think that can be catchy or can fit in different situation. Because, I mean, I will give the words to Uli and Pia for that, but maybe they can remember the song or the specific artist for this genre. So I think it's also important to, especially we're working a lot with emerging artists, so it's important for them to reach the line where they can create solid fan base and they can connect to the audience, let's say.
And how do you find the artists that you work with? What's their relationship to the sync possibilities? Are they curious? Are they nervous? Are they just anxious to get syncs? Are they critical? What are they critical about? Are there any questions or discussions that tend to bounce back?
It always depends on the artist, let's say, because some of them have, let's say, an artistic line. So if they are not inclined to get in specific sync, or they don't like the brand, or they don't like the music, they could also say, I don't want to do that. Or it depends also like on different factors of the brand itself, of the terms, of the budgeting. The budget is always a good point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But like I think for new artists is always, they are always inclined to take part of this opportunities, because it's definitely something good for their fan base and their exposure.
Do you I guess this one goes out to Pia and Uli first and foremost. Do you feel that, so it's a little hard asking these questions because you have to sort of simplify a situation so much in order for the question to make sense, but I'm trying to create some reflection around trying to place indie music, independent, upcoming artists, artists that have no name, so to say, in the directors and the producers and our clients' ear, versus established big names, big iconic songs, etc. Is there a typical type of producer or production in Germany that's going to be more open to the underground scene, and is there a typical situation or production that's going to be, rather having a few syncs but like with the bigger songs? Are you experiencing any tendencies and trends in that respect?
I would say, first of all, it of course depends on the movie. If you have a genre movie, usually tends to look more specific into one direction of one style of music. But overall, I can say that in my world, I've both. I've got the big, well-known songs as well as some newcomer artists, and due to the tools like Spotify have changed the access to music and made it much easier for us to quickly find very good indie music nobody knows, as well as the big hits. So I'm using in my case, it's really a mixture of both, and also it's always a question of budget as well. Of
course,
most of the times, of course, it makes a difference. So the challenge is sometimes to replace a big, well-known song, either because it's just not affordable or because we think, okay, it has been used so many times, let's find something nobody knows yet, but might have similar, So it's really both, But in my case, I really use Spotify and Apple Music quite a lot. So and that's a great tool for me to research music and to find and discover new music as well. That was more difficult in the past, where I just didn't have this kind of tool.
Pia, would you relate to this? It's kind of, it's not what it's about. It's just about finding the fits.
I would say it's about finding the fits. I don't care whether it's a new release, whether it has been released at all, or where I find it. It's really, it has to fit. What is always a bit difficult is the fact that usually people like more what they know. So it's sometimes hard to convince them or to offer, to propose other tracks. In my work, at least I have to pitch like 10 tracks per scene, sometimes 20, 50, whatever. And it's also very important to know for other people that we have to request sometimes a lot of tracks. So when I request to Silvia and she thinks immediately, oh, we got this deal because I got an approval, it has nothing to do with the reality, because at the end, the sound mix, sometimes in the sound mix, they decide which one they take because they know this song from City Slang costs 20,000 or this one is 5,000. Sometimes it's also this decision. So I would say, of course, I do a lot of dated movies, which means in the 80s, or at the moment I work for a movie in the 20s. So of course, and we haven't this concept that we use modern music. So I'm really searching for dated music. So then it's of course not interesting what is the new release.
Yeah. That's interesting. If I can allow a minute for a Nordic reflection, our experiences is very much that that if the song strikes a chord with, okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit. We've also seen a lot of production investment from the hands of Amazon and Netflix and such as these in the last 4 or 5 years. And what I'm experiencing is a bit of a culture crash in terms of production, and the paradigm of what film looks and sounds like, and the role of music is a little bit shifting, especially in Norway, which obviously is closest to me. There's the typical caricature of the Nordic noir film, which is very much emotionally understated, which is very much emotionally not very sort of put out. You know, it's a piece of it's a story that requires a bit of digestion, right? It's quiet. It doesn't have the song boom 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 to tell you all the first, second, and third layers of the relationship and the dramatics or whatnot. So this is a caricature, obviously a simplification, but this is sort of a typical paradigm for a Norwegian understated movie, which kind of, you know, fits well with the Norwegian. It's not, depending on where you are, it's not a very expressive, emotional sort of nature. However, this is all being stirred up by, you know, different subcultures, kids connecting through social media, globalized world. So that's one impulse. And the second impulse is the production company of Amazon and Netflix, which in my experience from also working on US production is very much American, where the music it's there for the storytelling, but it's very much tangible towards the, you know, the marketing aspect of the production. You know, how can we tap into different qualities of this production by choosing this song? So if you have the director or editor or sound person vouching for a song because it's just super cool and it really fits the artistic, sonic and dramatic landscape of this particular scene, it's going to have this budget. But if the executives find it a perfect piece to, you know, have the film more talkable, or they see a hook to connect into a subculture, and this is, you know, something doing with the film's marketability, the budget is going to change. And we see the same thing in ads, right? If the song is chosen purely for its artistic musical qualities because it creates an edge, it's fine, interesting, that may be sellable to the bosses. But if the bosses have made a focus group or an analysis that sees this song trending in the same target audience that we want to hit, blah, 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 suddenly the budget quadruples or, you know, some crazy dynamics like that. And I think it's interesting because this is all crashing and colliding now. We have processes where this is out in the open, right? Because you have a good process in Norway where, you know, the process is going to be open like that. You know, we have this budget now because this is the situation. And I'm trying, in these kind of panels in Norway, I'm trying to not have the rights holders accept this relativity, but just be clever and conscious in it, right? So sometimes the budget is going to be small because the stakeholders and decision makers are at a creative level which is lower, and sometimes it's a bigger game, and then it's going to be bigger. I'm just, you know, transparency is my key, because that's the only thing that's going to survive 500 chaotic projects like that. So having said that, circling back to that, do you experience this kind of budget can be this and this, or do you have a situation which, you know, I dream of working in, but I sadly gave up a few years ago, where there's certain standards of prices and licenses and productions, and we follow those, right? In terms of fees. Silvia, do you want to try somehow comment on that or follow up, or?
Yeah.
Was it big?
Well, from our point of view, we definitely see all the type of budgets. It depends on, most of them are small, but like it depends on the production company, on the brand, on the terms, media involved, because of course if you involve online, if you have worldwide, if you have perpetuity, then of course maybe it's going to be a little bit higher in comparison to something that is located and is just let's say, festival and some other medias involved. So it probably depends. We do expect that a big production company with a big production budget will pay more than, for example, a smaller one, but it also depends on the country. Like in Germany, it's like, from our experience, for example, we can see different markets from Italy, from Spain, from Germany and France, and definitely Germany and France could, like, on the same total budget, could involve a fee a little bit higher in comparison to Italy or Spain.
Yeah.
For sure.
Talking about fees is always difficult, and it doesn't make sense. So I normally, when I've moderated this before, I normally start the panel by saying no numbers will be given, just to sort of kill that expectation straight away, because it doesn't make sense in all the relativity that we all always experience. It really doesn't make sense to talk about that. But I still find it does make sense trying to pinpoint certain dynamics which can help people somehow navigate in a male conversation that feels, all but chaotic and random. You mentioned the word lottery. It's just, that's the way it feels. So we're trying to always cling on to little pieces of information we might have to try to make our best assessment of, whether this is something we should invest more energy and effort into, or if it's something that's not worth it. I guess that's always what I'm trying to sort of give to smaller indie labels and artist representatives, because they're tiny. That's my point. I don't know this audience very well, but I'm going to assume that there's a lot of really small players, so they have to choose their efforts carefully, right? So the best thing we can do is to, just, because of course nothing is going to be certain. It's a creative process. It's also a process that's sort of chaotic. But I still try to sort of give us our impression of certain dynamics and how things work. I think what I was trying to get at, but I kind of lost the way in my little Nordic picture, is that it used to come from a very director-centric. It was a very simple decision making. That the director in Norway in the previous was God. Creative every decision, every simple decision and priorities is going to be the director. So if the director wants the song, you really know that you're in a strong negotiating position. The modern new production style is that the decision making isn't centralized at all. It's spread out across the field of maybe 6-7 person and 6-7 processes. So you really need to work together with your music supervisor to give them all the information and status to make sure that Sync Opportunity has the best chance it can have to survive all this process, right? I'm going to have to switch the word back to the German music supervisors to know the local field better. Is this resonating at all?
I wouldn't totally agree, because I do have projects where the opinion of the director is quite important. It is very important, and of course can maybe sometimes here or there large in a budget, not very often, but sometimes. But I think in my case, the director's opinion is still quite strong. Which is understandable, because he is he's telling the story, so he needs to be he needs to feel happy. Yet of course you have the producer side, or the producer who wants you to stay in the budget and who not to extend it too much. But yeah, it's not no, the final decision in most of my projects is the director and maybe the producer, but it's not a democracy. It's not like 6 people sit together and vote, or no. It's still humans who have their own taste, and it's still a director who's telling the story.
Interesting. Democracy.
Netflix and Amazon, it's a bit different. You have really a lot of people talk about what they think and what they like, and sometimes it's a very creative process. Sometimes it's very annoying. But what I know with marketing cooperations and stuff, it's the distributor who is interested in this, and then we talk about the trailer, or sometimes about the end credit or the opening credit. But that's it. The rest is more or less the director or the producer who choose it.
Yeah. So there's a great nuances. I'm gonna switch the subject to something a little bit more concrete. I know in the Nordic countries there are the film funds supporting the film production, especially the more indie artistic films, have a web page where you all the time can see what new projects are on the way, which ones are financed and go ahead in production, which makes it an interesting and terrific place to hang out to see what's cooking, what's moving, what kind of stories are there. You know, a lot of the time you'll be able to get to know the project a bit. You know, what the story is about, what kind of director is working on it. You can do research then on what kind of work has this director done previously, and you might have enough information to say, well, I feel like we have some music that these people should consider. Do you have any equivalents in Germany? Well, any website that serves like an information hub that we could sneak around and send our Scandinavian music to projects we find interesting?
Every funding system has their own website, but usually they're in German. So you won't understand which has been funded. I really like IMDb, where you can check for which project a supervisor is working on at the moment. And then you can check on other websites what's the story about or the budget of the movie or stuff. But for pitching to music supervisors, I really like IMDb, and I like people who check this and they know what I'm working and what I did before, and a little bit the signature, what I'm good in or stuff like that.
Yeah. Any comments from the Uli or Silvia? Anything you'd like to add to this? Any tricks you'd like to share?
I completely well, I can just
co-sign.
Agree with. I just can, you know, I can just co-sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I wish I could see like, and I would be stressing out people all the time with our music. Yeah, it's difficult to get to know which movies are in production, because I think there are lots.
And then it's it still doesn't tell you anything about the style of music that we're looking for and so on. So this is a little difficult to go that way.
Yeah. Right. We have a couple of questions that have come in some minutes ago. I've just failed to look at the right page. Sorry about that, Francine. There's one question from Jona Nutinen. If you know quite precisely what kind of music you're looking for, how and where do you start the search? Let's start with you, Uli, on this one.
Well, this depends on the budget again and the style of music, of course. But as I mentioned earlier, Spotify is definitely a tool I've been using a lot lately. If I'm looking for rather cheaper and songs or easier to clear songs, I would go to music libraries, use that tool. They have pretty good search tools, actually. I think those would be probably the two platforms I'd be using.
Right. Pia, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
In my work, people's business is quite important, which means people I met at festivals, conferences and stuff. And then you know who is, like I said earlier, who is good in which genre. or what kind of music they do have. And sometimes I contact them just right away and ask for more stuff. Or I contact a colleague from the Nordic countries and ask who is the hippest Nordic noir guy at the moment. And so it's really a people's business. And like Uli, of course, I work a lot with Spotify and stuff, but I contact more people to send me stuff than searching online.
Yeah, I co-sign both of those. Those are the two modes that I also prefer. It's either a game of being in my own space and just browsing Spotify and then do the critical rational assessment. Is this something we should try? Is this something we should try to reach out to? You have a look at the rights, etc., etc. Or it's a people's game with the network and experiences you've had. It's just, yeah, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of our audience. That basically doesn't give a lot of great, smart life hack tips in order to get their songs on the top of the list for you guys. But that's the way it is. That's the hard reality of it. We have another question to Pia, specifically to Pia. This one. I heard that Netflix only works with buyout compositions. Is this correct? I'm assuming this is regarding bespoke music. Because yeah, Pia, are you with us? I just lost your picture. I don't know if the rest of you guys did.
I'm there.
You're here. Hi, Pia. Great. So you're with us.
I didn't get the question. Is it about composing music? Is it about music?
I think that's the safest to assume that. I heard that Netflix only works with buyout compositions. Is this correct? We're going to have to assume this is regarding compositions and bespoke music, because I'm assuming no company assumes a buyout of the publishing rights in any songs in the production.
I think it's something lost in translation, because buyouts don't exist in Germany. It's not legal. You can't buy compositions. You can license compositions, or you can keep the publishing rights instead of keeping them with the author. But you can't buy. This is just legal in America.
Great. So have you had this discussion or this sort of collision? Have you had because certainly this is a hot topic in Norway, and that a lot of composers are being handed American contracts, which is what they call them, which imply a buyout or a transition of the publishing rights. I think in order to make this question as relevant to as many people as possible, let's assume it as being a question is that they only work with compositions they can publish. And basically that they try to not only license the rights for worldwide in perpetuity, but also transfer publishing rights exclusive. Try basically to take as much as possible into the contracts. What is your experience with Netflix when they do productions in Germany?
Tough cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's a big topic, but it's the same with Amazon and Netflix. It's the same. They are not used to work with German or with European copyright law. So immediately in the contract, there's buyout, and we explain, no, that's not working, but at least, yes, they want to keep the publishing rights. Everything is always negotiable. It is. But they have more the policy, they pay more and keep the publishing rights than leaving the publishing rights for the author and paying a little fee. It's very difficult at the moment. It's a very politic theme.
Again, this sounds very relatable to the Nordic situation, because we have the same situation to begin with. I think we pretty much have the exact same copyright law. I think they all stem from the same principle or even draft. And it's a lot of the contracts that are being offered are illegal, and you know that that's not how it ends, because yet you see so many, you know, really established composers on major publishers doing Netflix production. So you know the publishing rights aren't with Netflix. So it's just it's a tough one to answer. The only thing we can say here that you can do, I'm trying to sum this up, guys, and please correct me if you feel like it. So the only thing you can do is remember that everything is negotiable, and it's a matter of your negotiating position. It's not one that we'll be able to solve right now, and I think it's one that's going to use years and years to sort of set down in a form where the Netflix and Amazon, etc., productions are operating in the European copyright law, and there's like a parity and an agreement. I think we're going to see years before we're there. So, until then, we're just going to have to negotiate, and are the middle person. Our job is just to see the opportunities and try to point at a solution that works for everyone. I don't see how we can answer that one any better for now.
Feels like a great tone to wrap this one up on, though. Everything is negotiable.
Yeah.
And pay attention to your contracts. Those are two really good tips to take away from the conversation today, I think. I'm sorry to have to wrap this up as we're getting into such a juicy topic as copyright, because I know we all love that. But we have the next session coming up. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the whole panel for taking part today. The next session that we have, if you signed up for a matchmaking meeting, please check your inbox, because those are going to start in about 10 minutes. If you haven't received an email about a matchmaking meeting, please stay on this platform and play with the networking button on the left-hand side of this, because there's loads of amazing delegates that you can get to know from throughout the Nordics, from Germany, from the UK. We've got people from America. We've got people from India in here. So please make some new friends on that. And our next panel will start at 2:30 CEST, because we're across all the time zones today. So we look forward to seeing you there. And a huge thank you to the panel for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.